Hey pilots, it's Monique. Welcome back to my channel, Freedom to Love Yourself. Put on your seatbelt so we can get ready to fly. So before we start today, I want to give a very times 1,000 special shout out to my little brother, Ike, who graduated from college today. Whoop, 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 whoop. He got his bachelor's of science in sport management. Whoop, 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 whoop. I'm so proud of you. So the intention for this video is to talk about the difference between being alone and being lonely. And we're also going to talk about some of the benefits of being alone and some things that we can do to get comfortable with being alone. So let's get into it. So first, being alone is being the only person in your physical space. So right now, I am alone. There's no one here. It's just me and all my glory. It's just me. Being lonely is when you don't feel connected to those who are around you. So with that definition in mind, you can be lonely around other people. You can be lonely in a relationship. You can be lonely at any point in time. And a lot of times people think of being alone and being lonely as synonymous. So right now I'm alone in my space, but I'm not lonely because I feel connected to myself. But when you are in a space with people that you don't feel connected to, that's when you start to feel lonely. When you're in a space with people who you don't vibe with, their energy's not right, maybe you don't know them that well, and just in general, like just people that you're not comfortable with, you can sometimes feel lonely. So I first want to start off by saying it is okay to seek companionship. As human beings, we are wired for connection. It's literally built within us. And naturally, we seek companionship in other people. And that's okay. That's a good thing. You want to be connected with other people. However, it becomes problematic when we are seeking out other people to fill a void within ourselves. So when you're alone and you're comfortable with being alone, it's like, okay, cool. Like, I'm here because I want to be here. And when you go out with other people, you're there because you want to be there. It's a more intentional process, and you're more intentional about the people that you bring into your life. When you feel lonely, and not just in a situation, but just a general state of loneliness, that's when we look to other people to fill that void of loneliness that's in our lives. And this is where it becomes problematic, because when we just want to fill the void, anybody will do, right? And oftentimes we end up lowering our standards, reducing our expectations, and becoming in relationship with people that really don't align with our purpose and people who are not good for our soul. And we tend to forget our worth and our value when we allow these other people to come into our lives that don't really belong there. So in my opinion, it is better to value someone's presence in my life than to have them there to try to fill the void. And when we think about how we want to be perceived in other people's lives, at least for me, I want to be a choice in somebody's life. Like that goes for friends, romantic relationships, any type of relationship that I'm in. I want to be a choice. I don't want to just be there because you have nothing better to do. I want someone who wants me there. An example I use with my students is water versus juice. So water, we need water. As human beings, we need water to survive. Yeah, we're made up of 90 some odd percent water. You need it, okay? We need it there. We need it around us. We need to drink it, even though we might not always want it. And so when we drink it, it's like, okay, I did this. All right. And we don't really enjoy it as much. But juice, you give us that right juice, the juice that we want. That is what we seek out, and we drink it enthusiastically. We drink it with passion, and we enjoy it because it's what we want. And if you ask someone, would you rather have water or juice? Most people are going to say that they would rather have juice. Most people prefer the juice. So when we look at water and juice in terms of a need and a want, you want to be a choice. not a necessity. Because when you're a necessity, it's like, I may not want you here, but I need you, so I'm going to keep you. But when you're a choice in someone's life, and when you're able to choose someone to be in your life, it becomes a more enjoyable experience. And the relationship is more enthusiastic. It's more, yes, like, it's more of a, I get to do this rather than I have to do this. So for me, an ideal relationship is kind of like a Venn diagram. And for those of you who don't know what a Venn diagram is, like the two circles that come on. So a lot of times we talk about relationships as two halves coming together to make a whole. Okay, but why would you want to be half a person? And then in that sense, it's like I'm half a person, so I need something to fill my void. Like I have a void here. I'm not a whole person. And so I look to you to fill my void. I look to someone who's also not a whole person to fill my void. And together we can be one person. Thank you, but no thank you. And then another way that people look at relationships is two whole people coming together to form, like, I guess, a bigger whole person. And to me, that is like a codependent relationship. I don't want someone who's like all up under me all the time. Like I need my space. I need to breathe. I need you to have your own life, right? So my ideal relationship is kind of like a Venn diagram. A Venn diagram looks something like this. You all might remember this from your school days, okay? So in the sense of a Venn diagram, it's two whole people coming together to share their lives, not to be each other's lives, but to share their lives together. So in the sense of our diagram, it kind of looks like this. You got your stuff, I got my stuff, we got our stuff. When we are able to come together like that, it's like I can have my own life, I can be my own person. You have your own life, you can be your own person, and we have our life that we share together. And I'm not talking about like go do dirt on the side. I'm just talking about like you have a life outside of your relationship. In order to have a life outside of your relationship with someone, you have to know what it's like to be alone. You have to be able to stand in your own person without anybody else before you can stand together with someone. And also, in my opinion, again, being able to be comfortable with being alone allows us to be in relationships that are beneficial to us. Because when we are comfortable being alone, it kind of eliminates that fear that sometimes people get in relationships and they're like, oh, well, I'd rather be with them than be alone. And so we deal with the toxicity. We deal with being made to feel like we're not important. And we deal with things that we shouldn't have to deal with in a healthy relationship because of that fear of being alone. And this is true for platonic friendships as well. And sometimes we keep people around who might not be good for us just because we'd rather not be alone. And it's like, oh, well, I've known this person. I'm more comfortable with this person, even though they might not have my best interest at heart. And this type of thinking, this type of mindset that, oh, I'd rather be with them than to be alone, that's not love. And that's no way to live. That's no way to be in a relationship with someone. Because at this point, you're in that relationship out of fear. And fear and love cannot coexist. I also want to acknowledge that there's oftentimes a pressure that comes from being alone. And this idea that we shouldn't be alone. So a lot of times, especially for women, we have this pressure to find a partner. And we don't want to be alone because, and I say especially for women because women are, like in our society, women are socialized for marriage while men are socialized to be bachelors. Don't be mad at me. It's the patriarchy. I didn't make this up. But we feel this pressure to be in a relationship with someone. And so sometimes we settle for just anyone because that pressure creates a void that says, oh, I'm not good enough by myself. And so we look for anyone around to fill that void. However, I guarantee that it is much better to be single and alone than to be lonely in your relationship. So we've talked about being alone versus being lonely and why it's important to learn how to be comfortable with being alone. So what are some things that can help us get comfortable with being alone? One of the greatest ways to become comfortable with being alone is to know yourself. Learn more about yourself, who you are, what you like. And eventually, as you get to know yourself, as you build that connection with yourself, because remember, I said loneliness is that feeling of a lack of connection with you and other people who are around you. And yes, that does include yourself. And so when you start to build that connection with yourself, learn about yourself, learn about what you like, what you don't like, then you start to get more comfortable being alone and enjoying the pleasure of your own company. So one really great way to get to know yourself is through reflecting on your likes, dislikes, past experiences. And one way to do this is through journaling. One of my favorite places to find journal prompts to figure out more about myself are on Pinterest. If you just search on Pinterest like journal prompts, so many prompts come up. And then you just start answering the questions and then reflecting on, okay, what do I like to do? Why do I like to do this? And these types of things, once you get to know yourself, will also prepare you to be in relationship with someone else, because you'll be a whole human being and you'll be able to attract another whole human being. And it creates a more enthusiastic, choice-filled relationship. Some other ways to get comfortable with yourself and comfortable being alone is to enjoy your company while you're alone. So for me, that looks like singing, dancing in the mirror, watching shows that I like, meditating, learning some new skill. Start to find things that you're passionate about. Find a hobby like yoga, meditation, exercising, painting, drawing, photography. One of the hobbies that I'm going to really try to get into once this social distancing is lifted is pottery. That's something I've always wanted to do. And I just feel like it would just be so relaxing. And so that's something that I'm going to intentionally do by myself. Another thing that you can do to start to get comfortable with being alone is to do things alone. One thing that I like to do alone is take myself on a date. And so I go to the movies by myself sometimes. Well, when outside was legal. Um, go to the movies by myself sometimes, take myself to dinner, take myself out for a drink, go walk around the lake by myself, take a nice stroll through a park by myself, and just spend time with me, getting to know me. I would definitely recommend trying something that you've never tried before, just to see if maybe you like it. And it also will push you to step outside of your comfort zone that much more to really get to know yourself. Because even if you learn, I really don't like this, that's still learning something about yourself. When you begin to get comfortable with yourself and truly learn to accept yourself and genuinely love yourself, you start to become more intentional about the company that you keep. So, who you spend your time with and how you spend your time. You will no longer be satisfied with toxic relationships because you will prefer your own company to bad company. You will become more aware of how other people affect your energy. And ultimately, you'll start to see how truly amazing you are and hopefully figure out your true worth and your value as a human being and how important it is for you to know your worth. And this is not to say that once you become comfortable with yourself and once you become comfortable being alone, that you will never feel lonely again. We all have our moments, and it's important to acknowledge those moments and hold space for those moments. And so, in closing, there is a difference between being alone and being lonely. We want to become comfortable with being alone and normalizing that positive relationship that we have with ourselves so that we are not using other people to fill a void in our lives. There are many different ways for us to become comfortable with being alone. When you do become comfortable being alone, you will be more intentional about the company that you keep. Then we learn to love ourselves enough to let go of people who do not recognize our worth and who do not align with our purpose. As always, I want to end with a positive affirmation. And so this week's affirmation is, I'm connected with myself. I know who I am and what I want. So as always, I hope that you all enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, subscribe to my channel, and tell a friend to do the same. And above all, always remember that you were born to fly. See you next time, pilots.